advantage of the day. When you get an opportunity in this game, you make a play. The playmakers on three. 1, 2, 3.
Touchdown, Kansas City! The Chiefs are right in the thick of it, baby!
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Defending the Kingdom. Mitch Holthus with you, voice of the Chiefs, along with Chiefs reporter Matt McMullen and the man we call the shop, the barber shop, the Spider-Man, Sean Barber, 10-year NFL veteran and now leader in the community and with the Chiefs ambassadors. This edition of the Defending the Kingdom will be called the Andy Reid Bowl. You see bowl games, right? These college bowl games, they have the little patches up there. Well, you got the Super Bowl 54 patch on your cool Kelsey jersey. So we decided to go all Andy Reid Bowl here. We're going to talk about one of the greatest coaches in the history of football, not just the NFL. A reminder that the Defending the Kingdom show is brought to you by 360 Vodka, the Kansas City's hometown vodka and the official vodka of the Chiefs Kingdom. And before we jump into Andy Reid here, we have another announcement to make. It's a guy that I've worked with for only 28 seasons now, but the executive producer of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network, so big even beyond that, Dan Israel, will be inducted this weekend into the Kansas Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. We've all worked with Spartacus at one time or another, but the dude is a genius. And I'm so excited he's into the Hall.
Man, to see him on so many different levels from a player standpoint and then being able to do production behind the scenes and watch him work both ways, like you say in Spartacus, that is definitely the terminology because he's a leader of men. And he works it behind the camera. He produces some phenomenal footwork and phenomenal footage. So many years as a player and now as on the production team. Dan Israel, my hat's off to you.
Yeah, and just such a great leader he's been for so long. And I remember when I first came on the staff several years ago, he just wanted to get to know me and welcomed me, and he's always been that way. There's a lot of turnover in sports. People come and go, but Dan's always been here and always been a huge member of this team, so well-deserved and so happy for him.
He's impacted the Olympics. The league calls on him when they want to figure stuff out. He's worked with all the major networks seemingly, and he's also been a cancer battler. So prayers up for Dan. But congratulations to Dan Israel, a.k.a. Spartacus, for making the Kansas Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Also, and Shop, people now defending the kingdom, it's global. Right? We've had Bolivia. We've had the African continent.
Yes.
Every continent but Antarctica.
Antarctica. So if you're out there in Antarctica, I know you love Shop in Antarctica. You're big in Antarctica.
Always.
I'm just telling you. But you got a few more.
I do.
You can add to the list.
Okay, so our comment section on the last episode. So we have David. He said, thanks for the shout out. He's in Australia. So he appreciated the shout out. So David, one more shout out for you down in Australia. We have a Vinicius in Brazil. So down in South America, Vinicius. I think I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Vinicius in Brazil. Reiner in Germany.
Reiner.
Listening to DTK, so Reiner over in Germany, so we have Europe covered. But then also, we talk about all these people all over the world. Also a lot of listeners right here in Chiefs Kingdom, right? So we have Brandon, he listens while delivering mail here in Kansas City. So wherever you are, if you're in Germany or Australia or maybe hopefully at one point Antarctica, or if you're right here in Kansas City, thanks for listening.
Neither rain nor snow nor anything will stop the mail. It will not stop defending the kingdom, and it won't stop the three of us of talking about Andy Reid. We are saying this is the Andy Reid Bowl. That's our commemorative big red patch for this game. The Chiefs against the Eagles. There's some just poetry here. But let's talk about Andy Reid overall. Because if he wins this game, 100th win with the Chiefs in both regular and postseason, he'll be the only coach in NFL history to win 100 games with two different franchises. That in of itself is enough to put him in the Hall of Fame. Now, we're going to get into this in detail with you, but just a few overall thoughts on Andy Reid.
Well, I'd say what's amazing to me about Andy Reid, and he's changed the culture of two different organizations, two proud organizations like we'll talk about. But what I think is so impressive about him is that he's not just a guy that has his system. He plugs it in, it works for a while, and then it goes away. Like we see so many coaches have their system, their thing, right? Well, Coach Reid has adapted with the times. And I think that's the most impressive thing about him over his 2-decade-long career as a head coach. If you look at his playbook in 1999, it's probably a bit different than what it is today, and he's adapted with the best of them. He's always been one of the best coaches in all of football, no matter what the times and what everything is being thrown at him is. And I think that's the most impressive thing about him, is his ability to adapt.
Yeah, and he's not a self-promoter, so this is why anything we can say about him is proper, Because he's just not one to put himself out there. But your thoughts?
Well, as a player, you realize there are always two types of coaches. And I know they call them player coaches, and then you have coaches that are always throwing players under the bus, right? Somebody's going to get fired. It's going to be the players.
Ain't my fault.
Ain't my fault. I put him out there. I lined him, assignment. He didn't make the play. Let's get a new player. Andy has been a guy that he doesn't want to waste your time, whether it's in the meeting room or on the field. He treats men like men. Yeah. There's a level of respect he has for players. You've done so much to get the opportunity to play this game all through the years of Little League and in college to put yourself in a position to be a part of the NFL. All he wants to do is put you in an environment to educate yourself and to be able to play at the highest level possible. There is nothing he wants to do from an organization standpoint that adds any extra distractions. He wants to eliminate stressors, eliminate distractions, and let guys go, what he says on game day or the night before, let your personality show. Yeah. And as a player, you appreciate that because there's not many coaches that see the team as being more important than themselves. It's a very ego-driven organization as far as the NFL as a whole. And when you're the head coach of one of 32 professional teams in the NFL, the highest level of football, it's very easy to let your pride get in the way. Andy, for a number of years, has always checked his pride and his ego at the door, and he lets the desire and the goals of that team supersede anything he wants from a personal level.
And I'll add on that, too, not to get too off base here, but that's what gives me so much confidence in this team moving forward after a couple of tough losses, because he always says, hey, that's my responsibility, we'll clean that up. He's never too high, never too low. I said that on Rewind after the game. If the team's winning the Super Bowl, he's excited, of course, but he's not too high. And if the team has lost a couple games in a row, he's not too low. So he has that middle ground. He's always even keel, and I think that helps players, and I think that helps fans as well, and that's why this team will be just fine moving forward, I think.
Which is why he's a great troubleshooter. You and I earlier on Kingdom Conversations, in 14, DeVito and DJ go down with Achilles tears within 5 minutes. Never seen it in my life. Okay, Chiefs start 0-2. He rallies to go 9-7. Coach Reid does. 15, 1-5 start. He wins 10 straight games, and the Chiefs win a playoff game for the first time in a generation. 17, they lose 6 out of 7 games. He rallies the team. They win the division. 19, we all think about unicorns, candy canes, and parades, right? 3 straight losses at home. Mahomes is hurt, and they go on to win the Super Bowl. So that's your point. The biggest compliment I've been able to give Andy Reid is he gets the human spirit. He gets the human spirit. He grew up in Los Angeles. He did not grow up in Malibu, okay, or Beverly Hills. He went to John Marshall High School, multicultural high school, right? And the fact that he gets everything. He gets the rural. He gets the urban. He gets the minority. I mean, he's an amazing person in that regard. He gets it, and he gets the human spirit. And he's phenomenal. So, to put this game in context, and again, if you're just listening and not watching this edition of Defending the Kingdom, we're in our Chiefs jerseys, suited up for the Andy Reid Bowl with our Andy Reid patches up and ready to go. But let's go back and put this game in context because it's going to start really in 1999. Let's take the Eagles when they hired Andy Reid, the redheaded offensive coach from the Green Bay Packers, right? He had been with Favre. They'd seen him on the highlights, but the Eagles, in the 15 years prior to Andy Reid's arrival, okay, won 126 games, lost 126 games, and tied 3. Andy's there for 14 years, 8 division titles, gets him to the NFC Championship game, takes over the NFC East, basically. And we're going to get to this in a second. Shop has seen this from both sidelines. Yeah. But your overall comment, let's go back to him transforming Philadelphia into what they became. And then we're going to get into Shop's interesting story here, because if there's anyone in the kingdom that has perspective from both sidelines of Andy Reid, it is one Sean Barber. Your thoughts?
Well, it's just crazy what he was able to do in Philadelphia, and it's much like what he's been able to do in Kansas City, where he truly has raised an entire generation of fans where, hey, our football team is really good. And for me, so I'm 28 years old. When I was growing up, the Eagles were really good. So as far as I'm concerned, when I was growing up as a football fan, the Eagles are always in it. I mean, they're going to 4 straight conference title games. The Eagles are a great football team. And you think about when you realize your own perspective, you think it's always been that way. So in my mind, growing up, the Eagles have always been a great team. And Coach Reid truly made that when he got to Philadelphia in 1999. He changed everything in Philadelphia, made them a consistent winner. And even think about their Super Bowl victory with Doug Peterson. Coach Reid was the ripple effect of that. I mean, if Coach Reid doesn't mentor and teach Doug Peterson, doesn't teach him his system, the Eagles don't win that Super Bowl even when Coach Reid wasn't there. So Coach Reid changed everything, even beyond after he had left Philadelphia, and he's done the same thing here, where you have an entire generation of fans in Kansas City that do not know what it's like to miss the playoffs, which is amazing, and I absolutely love it. But for fans that grew up when I did, when you're growing up in the early 2000s or in the late 90s, you went through some tough times, and Philadelphia fans did the same thing, and Coach Reid has changed everything for 2 generations of fans. So it's really amazing what he's been able to do.
So let's put this. You were 5 years old when Coach Reid got hired at Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Okay. You were 5 years old then when there was an aspiring linebacker for the Washington football team by the name of Sean Barber. And here's where we're going to go.
Don't make him feel old.
1990. Well, I'm feeling old. I look at you like, oh my gosh. You were a Washington linebacker.
Yes.
And Andy Reid comes into the division. Washington and Dallas, man, were pounding it out for the Giants. I mean, the Eagles were kind of the Eagles, but now all of a sudden Andy Reid gets that job. You had 4 games against him as an opponent, being a linebacker for the Washington football team. What was that like in 99 and 2000?
I think if I recollect and I try to reminisce about what it is preparing for a Andy Reid team, it's always going to be a team that's well prepared. They were going to be not heavily penalized. They were going to execute at a very high level. So execution and preparedness was something you knew you was going to get. So you had to really be on your toes. You had to be on your P's and Q's. You had to be always prepared to play your job and understand your position from a fundamental standpoint, way beyond any other. All this playing instinctive football, putting on the Superman cape, making plays from sideline to sideline. If you did that against Andy Reid, he would find a way to expose you. Oof. He would expose your quickness. The things you thought were your strengths somehow became your weakness. And he had a way of doing that over and over again. No matter how prepared you thought you was for his game plan, he was able not only before the game to put something in, but then there was always a few wrinkles in the second half that utilized whatever was working in the first half somehow didn't work anymore in the second half. And he was so amazing in those early years of the screen game. He had wide receiver screens, running back screens, tight end screens. He utilized that screen game so efficiently. It makes a linebacker always you got to play. It's like you're playing the run, the pass, and then the run again in one snap. And so you didn't know what you were seeing. You didn't know it was a pass set, a screen set, draw, and he kept you so kind of just unsure about what you were seeing up front with false keys and things like that. So all of his teams were so versatile as far as being able to run and pass the ball. He used a draw as a run. He used a quick pass as an extension of the running game. And those are still things to this day that are very cornerstones of his offense. But he has definitely extrapolated and definitely gone way beyond those 99 and 2000 seasons. Like you said, I think I went 2-2 against him. I feel lucky to have those 2 wins because I know as a linebacker he really had me playing to probably some of my highest level of plays during those 2 seasons.
Was Brian Westbrook there when you were defending them?
Actually, if we talk about 98, 99, 2000, it's probably more was Deuce Staley. It was the Deuce Staley teams. Obviously, the quarterback was probably
which started out with Doug Peterson.
It was
crazy.
It was Peterson for a while.
Then McNabb.
And then McNabb for maybe a few years before I actually became a Philadelphia Eagle. But it was just so it was so amazing to play a team that was so versatile. He stretched you all 53 and a quarter yards from sideline to sideline. There was always opportunity for them to expose your defense. And whatever you didn't correct a week before, whatever big plays you gave up a week before, there was some way he was going to attack that exact same thing to see if you corrected it. He wanted to know in the first 15 plays, did you correct your mistakes from a week ago? Because if not, we're going to keep exposing it until you have to correct it on the sideline. So he took everything you gave him. He took it. And then when it came to that second half, you had to be ready for Andy Reid 2.0.
I'm going to just give you the stats here, Matt, since you were 5 years old, but which is cool. In 99, Shop splits with Andy. He loses 35-28, kind of a shootout, but Shop had a pass defense.
It's a lot of points in 1999.
It is. Had 4 tackles. 2 weeks later, so this goes back to your point, you're playing these guys within close proximity. Yeah. And I love what you said, he'll take your strength and make it your weakness. I can see that. Then 2 weeks later, you play him at home and you win in overtime. 20-17 in Washington. He had 6 tackles in that game. All right, 2000, November 8, at Philly, a 17-14 win for the Washington football team. Pass defense for our favorite co-host, tri-host here.
Well done.
And then on November 26, feels like a Thanksgiving game, they lose 23-20. So, again, you played him in close proximity, but, Matt, that's what we see from Coach. And we've seen it over the last several years here.
Yeah, and you got my mind thinking here about how he attacks your weaknesses, because I mentioned how he adapts at the top of the show. And I think his ability to identify weaknesses over time led to him adapting and pulling things from the college game and changing the game as we see it today. You mentioned the screen game. The NFL didn't use running backs like Coach Reid did back when he first broke into the league, and now everyone uses them that way. And a few years ago, I looked this up to see how much the league had changed, but also how Coach Reid had changed with the league and led that charge. I believe back in, it might have been 1999 or 2000 is when I looked it up, but I was curious how many shotgun snaps Coach Reid had his quarterback in one of his first few years, and it was like 1 or 2. I mean, because that's just the way the league was. Because I mean, it was power I, it was under center. I mean, you never put your quarterback in the shotgun unless it was like 3rd and forever or something. Well, now everyone's in the shotgun all the time, and it just impresses me so much that Coach Reid has found ways to change his entire offensive philosophy. Like, once again, guys coming out of the MITs of football world, they have their playbook and they're like, this is my system. This is going to work. It's going to work wherever I go. We see that so often in the college game, and it kind of bleeds into the NFL. But the best coaches are the ones that say, here's my personnel. How can I take advantage of it and make my team better and attack the opponent? And Coach Reid, for decades, has found ways to do that in ways that no one else has been able to do, and he leads the charge. Like, how often do we watch a game on Monday Night Football or something and go, that's a Coach Reid play right there that we were running 2 years ago, because other play callers see it and go, how is he figuring these things out? How is he thinking of these things? How can we replicate it? And that's the challenge for the Chiefs, is just finding ways to constantly stay ahead of everyone else, because everyone's trying to follow what we're doing. But it's amazing stuff. And
he's not too proud. He'll look at other plays. He might watch the Richmond, Virginia Tech game and go, ooh, I like that. Yeah. And he's got all these eyeballs on all these games. I know. I've seen it. It's the NASA are surrounding him, but he's fascinating in the way he approaches it, and is always adjusting. I can tell you, and I've broadcast his games for 9 years. And Shop, you've been around this game a long time. I can't tell you based on down and distance or hash mark what he's going to do. He is totally unpredictable. And you go, oh, that formation, that's what this is going to be. We see that in most teams. And Matt, to your point, most coaches are the ones that, this is my system, here's what we do, you're going to run it. This guy's rare. Okay, now let's shift on. And by the way, our Defending the Kingdom podcast, this one is entitled The Andy Reid Bowl. Coach can be the first coach in NFL history to win 100 games with 2 different franchises this week in Philadelphia. It's just poetic.
It's crazy.
And we got our Andy Reid Bowl shirts on here. Our jerseys are ready to play. But this is the old adage, if you can't beat him, join him. Because now Sean Barber becomes a linebacker on Andy Reid's team in 2002. I love this. Shop, you become an Eagle, and honestly, this is your best year of your career. What is it now like being with Andy Reid instead of him using his strengths against you?
Well, it became a time for me to basically go out there and let my talents kind of show themselves. It was a time at Washington where I was fitting in the defense. I was kind of becoming my own, learning what my strengths and weaknesses are. And going to Philadelphia got me I was able to join a defense that was already one of the top defenses. But the one part they were missing was a playmaker at the will linebacker position. And they told me coming in that exactly what I was expected to come in and do. They wasn't going to slow down. They wasn't going to start I'm not calling stuff or slow down the blitz package for me. The train was going. It was going 100 miles an hour, and I was expected to jump on. They wasn't going to press the brakes, slow me down, or anything. And so our blitz package was something that it definitely showcased my coverage ability. It showcased my ability to make plays, but also that will linebacker position allowed me to go sideline to sideline, stay covered up, and be a playmaker, creating fumbles, actually getting a lot of tackles throughout the season. But with Andy, I would say the spice he added to the defense was a air of patience, knowing that the play was going to come. This trust the system, trust the defense. We draw up the system in the play for you to make a play. sometimes it's not yours. Sometimes we just need you to play within the defense because we're setting the trap for the offense. And when we want to set that trap and let that offense walk into it, and it's time to set that trap off, you need to be able to not just knock the ball down, but you need to go ahead and make that picks and run back for a pick six. And there was only a certain amount of guys they felt like were capable of playing that position and being put in that. And man, I played with some amazing guys on that defense, but we had such a level of trust on all three levels, and that trust came from Andy Reid. Andy Reid just, man, he gifted us a sense of trust, camaraderie, a sense of oneness in that defense that was unlike any other team I played for.
It shows up in your stats. Listen to these, Matt. Okay, 2002, this is our man Shop. Started all 16 games, 69 tackles, okay, your career high. You had a sack, 2 interceptions, including an 80-yard pick six at Dallas against the Cowboys.
Who was it against? Drew Bledsoe?
No, I guess as the old Dallas coach, I think. Wasn't it against the
Jason Garrett?
I think it was Jason Garrett.
Okay.
Wow. You totally know who it was.
You know it is. 2 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries. More importantly, they win a divisional playoff match. They get a bye, beat Atlanta in a divisional playoff game, and lose narrowly to Tampa Bay, who goes on to win it. Gruden. Taking Tony Dungy's team. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. The point is, you got that close to the smoke, the big show. Your thoughts when you hear that, Matt, about Sean Barber thriving in Andy Reid's system?
Well, I'm not surprised, of course, but I actually have a question for Sean based on all of this. And I mean, my thought here is we talk a lot about culture and how Coach Reid changes the culture of places. And you've kind of touched on this, but Coach Reid isn't a big rah-rah guy. I mean, he's not, getting out there in the media and screaming and yelling and all this stuff or riling the team up with those kind of antics. But we always hear about the culture that he has and how he endears himself to his players. And I'm just curious, as a guy that played for him, what gave you that trust in him that he had your back and that you wanted to play to your best of your abilities for him?
I mean, I say initially it was the fact that I was coming off of an injury. So the reason I left Washington was because I had an ACL injury and I was rehabbing it, and the Redskins didn't feel like I was going to come back 100%. And the Eagles actually took a chance on me. They took a chance. They saw enough of my rehab and they felt comfortable with me getting back to 100%. And actually, I guess from playing them twice, I made enough plays that they felt like that might be a good addition to their team. Obviously, it comes under the mentorship of Jim Johnson. God bless his soul. Yep. One of the most aggressive defensive callers, as far as his philosophy was to put so much pressure on the offense. We were going to dictate from a defensive standpoint what we were going to allow the offense to do. So this whole concept of offenses calling plays and then defenses having to react, we totally flip that around 360. We totally took your offense and we created such a pressure package that we made you eliminate offensive plays. From a defensive standpoint, that made my job a lot more easier. Yeah. And so from, like I said, he made analysis and he was able to look at my game and say, look, Sean, you go sideline to sideline. You're so quick, so fast. You don't have to be correct your first step. You can give the offense a count or two because you still have the speed to make up for it and still make a play. But what I can't have you do is be wrong. Because if you're wrong you're so fast, you're going to dislodge yourself about 5 yards, and then you're going to leave that back door for Tiki Barber and those Redskins at Stephen Davises of the world. When they hit that back door, they're going to go out the gate. So we need you to protect our backside. And then if you need to turn on that next level, get in that next gear, you have great makeup speed. You can cover the field, but just don't from the snap of the ball, don't overreact. Yeah. Just wait for the play to come to you. And like I said, instinctively, that defense was something, and you can tell from the stats, it became like my second nature. That was the most fun I had my entire career, was playing with the Eagles under Jim Johnson and Andy Reid.
I just love hearing that, right? Because when you think about the confidence that he gives his players, you can see that on the team here today. It's, here's what you're really good at. You're awesome. Let your personality show, and here are a few things to keep in mind out there. And it shows year to year. We see players in other systems and other cultures, they come here, and they truly blossom. And it's just a really cool thing to see.
I've heard many, say exactly what you said. They've had the most fun of their career playing for this coach, Andy Reid, and guys that were here when he took over. Now let's advance it here, because now we're going to get to the Chiefs part of this. All right. In the 15 years prior to Andy Reid's arrival, the Chiefs Kingdom won 118 games and lost 138. 20 games below 500 in that 15 years. So you're looking at about 7-9-ish, 6-10-ish. There were some good years popping. We all know that. And you played on a 13-3 team. But he changed things immediately. I remember when I got the text from Mark Donovan, he's coming. And I'm thinking, wow, Andy Reid is coming here. Everything changed. And it changed immediately. Keep in mind, I've often said we were the dishes on the Titanic. We were phytoplankton. We were at the bottom of the ocean at 2-14. And we looked like it was a long way to 3-13. And we go 9-0 his first year here. It's phenomenal, the impact that this guy has. So let's talk about the transformation that happened here, because people enjoy success for a 9-year period. All they think is we're going to the playoffs and win Super Bowls. Wait a minute. Let's back up the truck and look at this and realize the perspective here of what Andy Reid has done from a historical context. Better than Hank Stram, beloved. Better than the late Marty Schottenheimer, beloved. Any coach that's coached for the Chiefs, none has done what Andy Reid has done.
So I remember back in 2012, I watched with my buddy in college. We watched every single game, all 60 minutes of it, even the last game of the year.
So did I, by the way.
Yeah. You had to call it.
You and I were the only two watching it.
Yeah.
And Lenny Dawson.
Yeah, but, I watched every single one of those games, and all Chiefs Kingdom wanted was a winner. And we have this incredible fan base. We have this incredible history, and we know that we're better than this. We know it, and we deserve it. And when Coach Reid came along, before he even coached a game, I remember his opening press conference. I'm just a fan back then. I'm watching it, and I'm just thinking to myself, man, everything is different now. You can just tell it's just different now. And it's been that way. And it just, as a fan of this team, first and foremost, it just makes everything worth it in the end. And it's like we knew that we could get to this point. And that's what I was thinking about when we won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Got my patch here. My wife wore this during when she was at Super Bowl 54. So I think she has to wear this to all of them moving forward. But that's what I was thinking about, is I remember where we were and where I was as a fan. And it's like, I'm not jumping ship. This is my team and I love them. How do we figure things out? And Coach Reid figured it out, and I knew it from day one. And it's just so cool to know that this guy has the ingredients necessary to create this amazing recipe, and then he does it for all these years. And the success that we've had to be the team that we are now is just so much fun, to the point where we're 1-2, and we're like, what, 1-2? What? And we know we'll figure it out. We're not even panicking because we know we have Coach Reid at the helm. It's a very special thing.
Remember the old movie Pleasantville? Everything's in black and white.
Of course.
And as the movie goes on, like people appear in color when they become enlightened. That's the way this place was, because it felt like we were covered in coal dust. And then, bing, within a week and a half, he started to change things. And I'm going to ask you, Shop, because, again, more than any, you were here in the kingdom, but you saw he's coming. You played for him. You played against him. You played for him again in 2006. We're running out of time. We can't get into that story. But the Burkholters and the Spags eventually. But he brought his village with him.
Yeah.
What were you thinking when the Chiefs have Andy Reid as their coach now?
Well, the perspective I can put on it is when I got here in 03, 4, and 5, there was a great offense here. A great offense. And I was almost deemed or christened to be a leader on the defensive side of the ball with Greg Robinson in that defense. There was, I can boldly and honestly say there was not much trust in that defense. From a player to the coaching staff, whether it's from the D-line to the linebackers, from our linebackers trusting that our secondary can do what they were asked to do. And when you go into a meeting room on a practice field and you feel that there's a lack of trust on the different levels, sooner or later, you might win a couple ball games. And I think that season, right, in 2003.
13-3.
Right, we started 9-0.
Yep.
Went 13-3. But something as a player knew that team could not win it all. It couldn't be a team that stand the test of time because it was so much mistrust. No one trusted they was going to be in the right position or that the defensive call was going to be the right call for that situation in the game. The one thing I knew that when Andy Reid came to Kansas City, that one thing, that trust was going to be eliminated. That lack of trust was going to be eliminated. I didn't know how long it was going to take. I didn't know how long the environment was going to take for him to evolve and build that trust between the offense and defensive side of the ball and between the front office and the coaches and the players. But I knew if he was given enough time and people just eat what he's feeding you. right? It's about the players having time to learn. It's about the environment of learning alignment assignment, learning football philosophy. Taking guys who have been told they are all this, sometimes you got to chop them down a few. You got to chop them down and let them see their faults, and then you got to build them back up as a coach. You can't coach a guy on the field. You got to let him make some mistakes to realize why he's making the mistakes. But then you got to be bold enough and proud enough as a coach to take that player to the side and find out, why did he do that? Why did he misstep and go the wrong way? Why did that player run that route short? Why was that ball overthrown? Like, all the different things. Some coaches and players don't communicate. They want to watch the film, and they hope the coach don't see that play. I messed up. And coach goes to the next play, and I made it through. He didn't see that play. He didn't see the play where I was looking the wrong way. I went the wrong way. When it's accountability, and you know it's a passion to be in truth and honor, and you just want the team to be successful, even if it's at your own demise. You hold up, coach. Stop that play. Hey, I went the wrong way. I had my eyes on that guard, and when they went that way, like, which gap am I supposed to take? It's a passion for learning. And some coaches do not build a culture that make guys feel comfortable even showing that they don't know what they don't know. and you go over and over again, assuming that the guy to your left and the right knows what they're supposed to do, until, guess what? It's game day. And that offensive coordinator on that other team, he tweaks the play. Instead of the guard pulling, the center pulls, and we got two linebackers going to the A gap and nobody in the C gap, and it goes for 6, and we're on the sideline looking like, what did we do wrong? Who hit the wrong gap? Nobody has any accountability. Nobody wants to step up and say, hey, I read the wrong person. I read the wrong gap. I ran the wrong personnel. Oh, I lined up in the wrong place. I executed wrong. There's a level of trust here. Everybody is sacrificing, working their butts off on a daily basis to do things the right way. And that's something that Coach Reid, since day one, has brought here. And I knew when he brought that here, we had the personnel. We had the personnel, but all we needed was that trust and that accountability. And he's married both of those things to create what we had in the middle of a dynasty.
And I'll add there, too, that accountability is behind closed doors, which I think is super important. Because how often do you see coaches call out players in the media or call out players outside of the building? That doesn't do anything for accountability. That just makes a guy be down on himself, and then you have mistrust. Coach Reid will go out and say, this is all my responsibility. Then behind closed doors, address the issues. And that's so important.
But while he addresses the issues, he creates horizontal accountability in his locker room. He knows that's important, that he can't win without that. It can't just be the coach alone. We'll close this way. One of my first conversations with him, because you spurred this thought, is Shop, was I said, Coach, because we were in a one-on-one. I said, it just seems like the league is turning into almost distrust. Like, instead of starting at 0, and I've got to earn Shop's trust and Matt's trust, like you're starting at -5. He goes, no, I don't necessarily agree with that. It depends on the environment that you're in. Now, I can see what you're saying a little bit. Things have changed in this league. But he goes, it's not necessarily that. Like, don't start at -5. Now, I'm going to let you start at 0. Might give you +1. But he immediately said, I'm going to hold you accountable. I saw that look in his eye, and I had to go to the bathroom real fast. Right? But it's also something special in him. And I saw it starting in the first couple weeks he was here. I thought, we're going to win. And we won. Philadelphia won. The Chiefs have won. And now the two play each other, ironically, with Andy Reid, can make National Football League history if he gets his 100th win with the Chiefs, and he did so with the Eagles. No other coach has done that in the history of the league. Yes, it's the Andy Reid Bowl. Thanks to my man Sean Barber. Thanks to my man Matt McMullen. And honestly, folks, don't let this thought pass by. This is a moment in National Football League history. The Andy Reid Bowl coming up on Sunday. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Defending the Kingdom. I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs.
10, 5, touchdown! Lock it down!